Hi. Why isn't this working? This is supposed to be my intro. Hi, everyone. I don't know why this...
Breath framework. B, begin where you are. R, reclaim your power. E, excavate your core values. A, allow, not control. T, through, not around. And H, healing. The breath framework, a way of life.
The music is so dramatic and I love it. Hi, everyone. Welcome to Soul Center Experience Live. How is everyone doing tonight? Please jump in and comment. Tell me where you're commenting from. We're talking about the breath framework as usual tonight. My guest is not quite here yet, so you get to listen to me ramble. We are on the letter, as you just heard all the letters for breath framework. Hey, thanks, Philip. Appreciate it. I don't know why my buttons aren't working tonight because when I tried to put the intro on, it wouldn't let me. So it's just like, but that's how it goes. So thank you. DJ Durante did my intro, which I love so much. I love that song. I love the voiceover. I'm a little embarrassed by the 4 pictures of me at the end, but I try to just embrace it. Hey, see, my buttons aren't working. Hey, David, how are you? Good to see you. Thanks for popping in. Appreciate it. Got some Twitch notifications going on. I don't know what's going on with my computer, but we will make things happen anyway. We are talking about, see, that keeps coming up. We're talking about, hey, this is, Nadine Cohen is sitting on our porch at the Shore House right now, writing funny things like buttons. That's like when people say things like, instead of button, they say button. Did you ever hear that? We also say cotton. Some people say that instead of cotton. Anyone who's close with us will know how crazy we are, but that's what we're talking about. Yes, this is free, Ian. I don't need any money. You don't need any money to come silently rambling in the doghouse here. What does that mean? Am I in the doghouse or are you in the doghouse, senor? Hi, Brad. The app on my iPhone is not working. I don't know what's going on, but my computer's kind of messed up too. So maybe it's the thing. Maybe it's the spirits or something, which I'm all about. But we're supposed to talk about, hi, LinkedIn user. Can you identify yourself? Because I only get, when you're private, I only get LinkedIn user. So I don't know who it is. But I want to say hi. So I'm waiting for my guest, who is Michelle Harwood-Lange, who's amazing. We're going to talk about the letter T tonight. Through, meaning go through something, not around, from the breath framework. And everybody has, oh, thank you, Richard. I appreciate that. Everybody, hi, Devin. Thank you guys for all stopping by. Oh, Evie's here. My daughter's here saying hi. I love that. Hi, Eve. I'm thrilled to tell you that as I continue to work this breath framework in my daily life, because it is a way of life. I have found that going through there's Michelle. Hold on one sec, Michelle. I have found that going through is one of the more difficult. Beth, everybody's saying hi. It feels so good when you're here. I love it. I find that it's definitely one of the hardest letters. And I always do this. I do a letter a week, right? And then I say how hard each one is. But it's not that it's so hard. It's just that, going through is difficult. Going through is difficult. When you actually sit in something and you go through. Brad says it's transformed his life. Yes, it has, my friend. I've watched you transform right before my eyes as we've coached you. So congratulations on being, as everybody knows that watches me, Brad is our poster boy for the breath framework. He's incredible and doing incredible things with his life and has turned so many things around. Helps to spell transform correctly. I understood what you meant. I speak Brad. So I'm going to bring on my beautiful, wonderful guest so we can start to hear about her and how she is going through. Hello, my friend.
Hello.
How are you, Michelle?
Well, every time the universe gives you an opportunity to speak into your life, there's always a challenge that shows up. So I have to apologize for being late because I had to go through something to get here.
That's okay. I want to hear about it. You don't have to worry about it. We're all good.
Yep.
Late is on time too. You're here. You made it. I'm happy to see your face. I think the last time we really spoke was the last time you were on my show.
Yep, it was.
That's a while. That's like a year ago, right? Like almost a year ago?
Almost a year ago, I think. Yes.
So
Yes.
it's wonderful to see you. You're as beautiful as ever.
Oh,
and I want to hear what's been going on with you. Catch us up.
Well, one of the biggest challenges has been literally for me going through COVID and experiencing what it feels like to have that illness. I'm still going through it, but I'm learning so much. It's going to sound weird what I'm about to say but it's part of the mindset that you need to introduce to yourself when you're going through something. And that is, see it as a gift and an opportunity to learn and grow. I am grateful for COVID because I got an opportunity to see what mattered to me, what was important, and who would show up in my life to support me through that experience. And I had to deal with my own fears and anxieties. And I'm grateful for that because I learned some new tricks and things that helped me to come to an understanding of life is an evolution of change that's constant. So when we think of things that way, there's a constancy to change. We can understand and accept that at any given moment, there's going to be something that's going to show up, and that's okay. It's something that we have to agree to ourselves and accept that there's a constancy with that. And while we do that, also, how are we going to react to that challenge? So for me, it was a moment for me to literally slow down, figure out where my path was, what my passion and purpose was, where my principles lied, and what really mattered to me, and why was I doing what I was doing. And so it gave me an opportunity to think through some of those things, get reconnected with my family in New Zealand and Australia. And let me tell you, that's been an amazing experience that they showed up for me. And of course, they had plenty to worry about. We're family, and getting reconnected that way was a blessing. It also helped me to understand my mindset, which in the journey of life and how we get through things, how I said that you have to anticipate that there's change. Well, one of those changes is understanding your mindset and where your thinking comes from. So what I didn't realize is that I've been a little bit passé about COVID, and that, because it had been over a year and I hadn't got COVID, right? It's a little bit cocky to think that way, but I got it. I had it. I tested positive. I had to go through it. And in that moment, I had to realize that I was really scared. And why was I scared? Because my daughter's relying on me to be present to her life. And questions came up for her. Mama, what am I going to do if you die from COVID? Who's going to take care of me? Well, where's the gift there? 1, be prepared in your life experiences to take care of those things behind the scenes so that the ones that you leave behind are taken care of. I had to get present to that instead of being complacent about it. Oh, I can take care of it later. It's no big deal. Well, it's now in your face. You have to have that discussion with your daughter. You have to have those conversations. That's one gift. Another gift was dealing with my fears. And that was a big one, was how do I get through dealing with my own anxieties and fears? And that is just allowing life to touch me, get present to what I was feeling, and go, okay, what are my choices here? what are my choices? And recently, and while I was waiting for my daughter's bus to show up from school today, I was sitting thinking about the show, and I was like, wow, what is something I really want to talk about? And one of them is that when you're facing a challenge, how do you turn it into a gift and an opportunity? So in your challenges, and what I did is I married a bunch of information that's been showing up for me and put it all together. And it seemed to be, and for me, it was like a soul language that was like, oh my gosh, I'm connecting soulfully, heart-centered to an answer. So it deals with, we have a circumstance that is a challenge. So how do we deal with it? First train of thought is check your levels of where you're at in your reactivity to that situation. 0 is no reaction. 1 is very slight. 2, 3, your maximum overload is 4. Check to make sure where you're at on that spectrum. Second, in that circumstance, in that challenge, create an affirmation where it becomes a gift and an opportunity, but also look at the constraints related to that challenge. And you go, okay, what are my constraints? And then you have to give yourself 5 choices in each level of those constraints, whatever they might be. Give yourself 5 choices, then go away, look at those 5 choices related to those constraints and go start problem solving. Along the way, your mindset might say to you, well, you can't do this, and what do you think you're doing? It's going to try and move you away from the way that you are manifesting some innovation to get through that problem, to get through that challenge, to get through that space where it turns into a gift and an opportunity. And then the last part is go celebrate what you did. Celebrate how you got through that and remember that moment so that when something similar rolls around, what key things are going to happen for you, what you can bring as innovation to solve the concerns, the problems, the things that you have going on. And the reason why you want to create a strategy of a level of 0 to 4 is I learned, you're welcome, Michael, is I learned that, and this is coming from equine therapy with Peyton, my daughter. There's a level that she works with when she's working with the horses of 0 to 4. And it's how, and I correlated this with how we check in with ourselves, but it's also how we interact with others. Mm-hmm. When she's trying to get the horse to do something, you've got 0, which is a soft voice. You've got 1, which is a little bit louder and it will graduate. A 4 means Peyton has to do a rigorous activity or a tug on the lead to get the horse to respond. If the horse doesn't respond, then you go take a break. You take a deep breath. You do an affirmation and you take a deep breath while you're doing the affirmation to get yourself recentered so that when you're in the middle of a situation, you've 1, checked a gauge of where you're at. 2, where's your response in that gauge? And 3, how are you responding to people and those around you when you're in the middle of it so that you can check yourself to say, okay, I'm at a 4. I need to go take a break. Let's have a communication with somebody to let them know, I really can't manage this right now. I'm going to go take a break for about 10 minutes. We'll come back and talk about it then. And then that way you're not always in crisis mode and reacting in such a way that you're not managing to get through it and it seems to cycle through consistently. The other opportunity I've learned is that sometimes we keep looking for mechanisms to solve problems, new mechanisms, new something to get through, right? And perhaps along the way, we've already had coping skills and mechanisms to help us through life. So sometimes, and I learned this because of Peyton, we have to just take a deep breath and look at what we have, not what we have not. And the answer lies right there in the haves. And then depending on who's in the situation, we put them in the driver's seat of being able to manage those coping skills, because if it's in our 80% control, we can deal with it. If it's in our 20% control, we need to let it go, allow them the opportunity to live in, to figure out how to problem solve. That's not just with work, it's with our relationships with our children. It's giving them, and it's giving other people to have an opportunity to make, again, 5 choices to empower themselves with the things that are already relevant to what they already know. Because sometimes as, you know, a parent of a special needs child, I'm looking for things to help communicate with her, to help her get through life. And I cross-correlate those things to other relationships, other ways of being, so that perhaps that little tool will help me get through a situation. And when I feel frantic and panicked and, oh my goodness, I just don't know what to do. And I've had those experiences. I mean, can you imagine you've got COVID, a special needs child who has disorders that are emotional based and behaviorally based. You're trying to work, you're trying to do a whole bunch of stuff. You find out that family are moving out of town and they're your biggest support system. So either I can choose to escalate to a 4, throw my hands in the air, behave badly, or I can find innovation, calm, peace, be humble, and reach out to people and ask for help and say, I'm stuck. I need some support. And that was part of my learning curve for COVID, is I can't do everything. And I had to find my own sense of grace and humility to say, okay, I'm not Wonder Woman, but I need help. And I have to say that asking for help is a huge strength. It's not a weakness. It's a strength. It takes courage and tenacity and self-understanding to actually reach out and ask somebody for help and support. And there isn't anything wrong with it. It's actually okay to do that. And what you find is when you do that, you're taking ownership of yourself and those that you're responsible for to help carry you through that moment, because you don't have what you need to get through it. And it's okay, because, you know, when we're in life relationships with a partner, there's that yin and yang where they're great at some things, you're great at some things. So when you have a shortfall, they pick up the pieces. And that's no different when you go ask for help because you have a shortfall. It's okay. Life happens. Let it touch you. And then you go, hi, I need help.
So we have a question for you, Michelle.
Yeah,
hold on.
Sure. Go ahead.
Richard says, I'm listening to what you're saying and being respectful, but motivation is defined in different ways for different people. Some need a hug and reassurance. Others need a swift kick in the ass. Each individual has their own motivators. Leaders find them.
Yep, I would have to agree. Yeah, it's a great statement. Everybody has their own motivation, but you have to become self-intuitive and self-driven to understand what your motivating factors are.
Mm-hmm.
How can you speak into and speak up to what your motivation is if you don't know what it is? So to thine own self be true and understand who you are and what you need. And a leader, you're right, a leader will be aware if they're paying attention and listening to understand, not listening to speak, and they're willing to roll their sleeves up and pay attention to those that they work with, to see, 1, how that person learns, 2, what they need to help them move forward in their work, what they're really great at, what they need support in to be good to great, and utilize all of those facets in order for them to build a great team. Great teams come from amazing leadership, where leadership is humble, teachable, understanding, and there's a Hawaiian word called laukahi. Laukahi means unity. How do we create unity? We connect with our humanity. People aren't numbers, they're people. They have a human side. So as leaders, we connect with that humanness in ourselves, admit that we don't know everything, and go find a remarkable team that will help to build this culture where we help each other, we support each other, we lead with a small L, not a big L, because why would we want to lead where people do not feel like when they wake up in the morning they want to go do their job? So it's the same at home, you know, cross
Michelle,
the board.
you've done an amazing job at the letter T, going through. You just have an incredible way of going through, and I know your story, and I know how much you've gone through and what you've persevered through and what you've overcome. How did you figure out that going through, you needed to recognize these struggles as gifts? How did you get to that place?
Gee, that's a really great question. I think for me and my life experiences, early on as a teenager, I had some tragic experiences. You don't need to know the details, but what I remember about those experiences in its entirety was that there were opportunities that instinctively, intuitively, inspiration showed up. I didn't dismiss it. I took it as something that I could utilize, and it seemed to be consistently showing up. And for me, that was the framework of turning in an opportunity into a gift. I've discovered language since that speaks into that very thing. An example of being 17, I had an experience. I realized that, and I didn't have the language for it at 17, but I realized that mentally I was going down a space where I wasn't able to cope with a situation, and I knew it, but I wanted to move away from that. So in simple terms, I said a prayer to give me strength, to give me understanding, and something showed up. For some, it may be meditation, but for me, that's what I did back then. And inspiration showed up. And what I did was I reframed the situation by visually creating a vision of this thought. And the inspiration that came, even though I had no idea I was changing my mindset, was think about a childhood memory that gives you warmth inside. So I did, and that childhood memory was blowing bubbles. That was it. It was simple. And just the vision of those bubbles floating around and what they look like and what I felt like when I did that as a child. That's the first thing that came to my mind. I realized when I was paying attention that in that moment, those negative thoughts and feelings about this experience started to shift. So I correlated, I came up with, hey, I wonder if I do that in other stuff, get visuals about my childhood, if that would help move things out to try and get through. I had no idea at 17 I was shifting my mindset and changing those neural pathways from that experience to a different story. Had no idea. So I think for me, it's listening to your intuition and trusting it. Can I say that I've always done that? No, but over the years that I have improved that skill set of trusting my intuition and believing what information I'm receiving and following through on it. I mean, because we can all get intuitive information, but whether we follow through on it is another thing. So over my life experiences, one would connect to the other, and then I would see, okay, that worked. Let's see how it works in different things. And I think having a good support system, my mum and dad, even now going through COVID, there's that memory of other life experiences that we have talked about because of me having COVID, that, saying thank you to them and saying, I have to thank you for being amazing parents. So those of us that have the opportunity to have great parents, be grateful that you have them. If you don't, find a way to help kids, adults, and people out there to have a support system. Be open to being there for them, because those who have not, I can tell you, that the small miracle that there is of me is I've spent over 30 years here in the United States without my immediate and my extended family. And I grew up with all of that around me. So don't ask me how I've ever done that, other than I had learnt special skills through my life to be able to adapt. And that's key: adapt, change, and live into those possibilities. So, yeah, if you don't find a support system if you don't have one.
Michelle, do you believe in integration of karmic stories? You have your journey, they have things to work through, including love interests. Then you have a compromise of joint decisions.
Yes, I do. I recently learned in the last 18 months that I have a karmic cycle that I'm closing out, and I found that rather interesting. And I'm like, wow, who would have thought? And the way it showed up for me is that I went back and thought of pieces of information in history and people that I would always, in my studies at school, just go, wow, what's up with that? I really love Greek history. I really love this about, Greek history and the gods. And I was always, interested. So I started asking questions of why I actually did that. And then I've discovered an understanding of karmic cycles and how our behavior will show up. And we need to close those cycles so that we can go from being that person we were in that cycle to something different. And my person, I'm too shy to talk about it, but well, maybe I should. I don't know. Anyway,
you're safe here to talk about it.
Okay, I'll talk about it. So my karmic cycle has to do with Helen of Troy. And I need to close a karmic cycle where choices that she made have to do with, instead of creating a sense of, well, we know in history that war was created because of her choices, right? And the love of her life. And she left one for another, and they created a war. So her karmic cycle is about taking the love and light in who she was and giving love and light, rather than worrying I don't know how to say worrying about relationships, but who she was at that period of time. And what does that have to do with me? Well, I understand through some really great friends that I was Helen of Troy. So my work is about sharing love and light to the world in a way that helps people to connect with love and light and create ways of people connecting with their humanity rather than their insanity. And just be, touching people's lives for the better good. And so for me, people that walk into my life, graduate into my life, however they come in, it's very much about sharing an opportunity of love and light where they get to see the possibilities of who they are, and to celebrate that, and to radiate that goodness in them so that they can move forward. I mean, it doesn't matter how long that person stays in my life or is present to me. It's just intuitively, instinctively knowing how to touch their life. And yes, I mean, it's a brief explanation, and yes, I'm being rather nervous about it, but I'm grateful for the opportunity.
Michelle, I think she means, how do you think, Susan said, how do you think you gained your wisdom from, or where do you think you gained your wisdom from at such a young age?
I think, oh, good. I'm glad that you can relate. I think for me, we're all given gifts. And at some point in our life, we either have to have an experiences that gives us an opportunity to be aware of it, or we create an awareness because of life experiences. For me, I think that at an early age, I was aware of having gifts, being empathetic extremely intuitive, and I haven't understood or known my intuition, and how spot on it is until this last year, when I've really channeled an understanding about what intuition is all about and the gift that it is to me and what other gifts show up. So we each have them. They're in us anyway, but it's up to us to discover how or what they are. So I think for me, my guess was having an instinct that there's something there, and then trusting the intuition. Were there periods of time I switched that off? Yes, because I did get afraid of what that was really about, and who on earth would understand how I would know such things, right?
Mm-hmm.
So in that challenge for me, eventually I had an understanding somewhere that it would show up again, that there would be a place in my life that would necessitate that, and I'm going to use a phrase, silent knowing. So if you have a gift, a special gift, it comes from a space of silent knowing, and you don't really need to speak up or speak out about it a lot. You just go and do it, and you follow it. If that makes sense to you guys that are watching and listening, there's a silent knowing in the gifts that you have. You accept them, have an awareness. It doesn't mean you have to speak to everybody about it. You just go and do because it's already present. Does that make sense?
Beautiful. Yeah, makes perfect sense to me. So during the last year, you got closer with or more in touch with your intuition. What specifically about your intuition popped to you? What came to the forefront?
Okay, I'm going to give you a really personal example. So last week I got asked out on a date, and it was the connectivity was there, soul, heart, mind connectivity with this person. By Friday, I knew intuitively that this person, we would go out on a date, and then by the end of the date, they would tell me, I don't want to see you anymore. And this is why. And the reason why is that I am not, and please, I'm not trying to disparage somebody. They have their own thinking of how they want to live their life and create a partnership with somebody, okay? I love every inch of who I am, and I know that there's things that I need to work on, and I love that too. So what was mentioned was that I wasn't enough in one facet of my life, and that would be physical fitness. And I know that, and I'd already mentioned that to him. So what happened when I went on the date was great. It was wonderful. It was amazing. At the end of the date, that's exactly what happened. I'm sorry, Michelle, but I don't want to see you anymore because of this. And I don't know how to say it to you without hurting your feelings. And then I turned around and said, well, cool. It's a gift and an opportunity to have met you. Whatever that's about, it's okay with me. I understand where you're coming from. That's cool. I get it. But I want you to know. And then I said, I knew that this was coming. Well, how did you know? I just knew. I knew that you were going to say goodbye, see you later. And why? How could you know that? Well, I just do. So for me, it's in the quiet, listening to what feelings and thoughts come to mind. And the stronger the feelings and thought, the more clear it is. There isn't any fuzzy about it. I'm really sure about it. I'm very confident in it. And that's all there is to it. I mean, there's things like, here's another example. My daughter has reactive attachment disorder, and we're always looking and keeping tools in her toolbox to help her to cope with that. We reached a precipice in our relationship and in the home where things were starting to get way out of control. There was lots of impulsive behavior that was very dangerous for both Peyton and I. During COVID, that became very apparent. So not only am I dealing with COVID, I'm dealing with both us being sick, I'm dealing with impulsivity behavior that's very dangerous, and I'm exasperated as a single parent, also knowing that the biggest support system that I have if I need to take a break away from the situation is moving out of state. So what does Michelle do? Well, accepted the situation, cried a little bit, and then I just sat and thought. And I just thought. And I left it alone, and then I went back to it periodically. My instincts and my intuition told me, exactly like I shared here, Peyton has all the tools at her fingertips for the last 2 years. Why am I looking for another tool? She has everything. So I need to find a mechanism for her to empower herself where she gets to take ownership of her choices. And that way, she's taking ownership of her consequences. She gets to have 5 choices, good, bad, or indifferent, but she's making choices. And we need to speak into that model. And I sat there and went, that's just brilliant. Why didn't I think of this before? Well, I just need to sit quietly to see what's going on, assess the situation, then leave it alone, go do something else, some art, and then come back to it. And what happened? That was the answer. And the reason why I know the answer is because we have had a child that's gone from, I'm not going to junior high, I'm not going to middle school, I don't want to, I'm so scared, I just can't do this, to I can't wait till the first day of school. Why? Because leading up to that week before school started, we started reframing and reconditioning her thinking to empower her that she had tons of choices to make for both good consequences and negative consequences, and she owned it, and I would support her, but I was stepping away from running the show as far as the toolbox that she chose to use. She gets to control those coping skills. I would step in if there was an escalation that she couldn't manage. And then we would go through the steps of take a deep breath, count to 10, let's do some tapping, which is tapping parts of your body here, 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 and here, and here. And while you're doing it, you take a deep breath and do a positive affirmation. So I've taught those to reframe that conditioning that she has from the trauma that she received as a young one. By making that choice intuitively, Peyton has realized, 1, she's going to make mistakes. 2, she's got to deal with the consequences of the mistakes she makes, and she takes ownership of what those consequences are. She's learning, if I make this choice, I'm choosing this. Oh, I don't like that. Maybe I shouldn't do that again. And one of the reasons I was late is because Peyton had to reframe her thinking, because she had to deal with a consequence. She had to deal with taking accountability of something that she had done. And I had to just stand in the framing that we had created and make her accountable for what she did, get her to calm down, get her to see her choices, and understand this is where I'm stepping in, and here's your reminder. And the rest is on you. Because I spent a lot of time trying to understand coping skills and tools for her, but I need to get her to, she's 11. Peyton's 11. She just turned 11. I need to get her to take ownership, accountability, and leadership of her life and her choices. And I, as a parent, need to let go. It's time. And I started thinking, that was one of the thoughts I had of, and that intuition is, you know what? It's time for me to let go. Just let go. And some of that letting go came from being paralyzed by fear of Peyton's impulsivity. And I realized that in going through COVID, there was a lot of fear going on underneath. I'm like, wow, when you get time to relax because you're so sick, the truth shows up and you have to deal with it. And it's like, okay, I've got a lot of fear going on. I need to let it go. Yeah. We have to quiet our minds.
Until we
Yep.
hear our heads.
Yeah, we do. We definitely have to do all of
couple
those
comments,
things.
Michelle. I don't want to
Sure.
miss these. So Ian, we're backtracking a little bit, said, Michelle, the teachers we have are Our parents have karmic stories. We view them as true and create our own stories based on them. It takes shadows to realize this, neutrality to create awareness and knock steam out of it, and strength to create new choice for power, which takes uncomfortable out. And this is where we grow.
Yep.
Just wanted
I
to make sure
agree.
I include that comment. Richard, who asked if you were in an art gallery, by the way, Richard, that was earlier. She is an artist. So those are that's all her work behind her. People have different motivators and desires, wants and needs. I've dated women who I knew it wouldn't work out. They had different wants in life. It's not bad. People have different wants and needs, and it's okay not to match. But when it does match, it can be amazing.
Yep, that's true. It's very, very
We
true.
all want that match. We're heartbroken when we think we find the one, but it doesn't match. But when it does match, it's unreal joy. That's love.
Yep,
when
it is. And you have to come from an understanding of we all have different choices in life and what we want. And just because we're feeling something that's lovely and it feels like it's close to a match, we have to take into account the other person and, you know, what is their deal breaker? What is it that is absolute for them? And it's having understanding and compassion when you release that. So, you know, I get it. It's cool. I understand where you're coming from. I understand that this activity is super important to you. And the way that you see things is that I'm not capable of doing that. But here's the other thing that I learned. Sometimes when somebody says, I don't want to do that, you have to see if there is an underlying factor as to why they're doing it. Are they bringing their past experiences into the now and framing what they see as a trigger to make a choice? Sometimes you have to speak up for yourself, and I did that. I went back to this gentleman and I spoke up for myself and said, you know what, this is what I'm thinking and feeling. I'm not trying to push past what you think and feel, but I can't in my present state, I can't ignore what I sense, think, or feel intuitively or empathetically based how we connect. I can't ignore that and just say, okay, good. And usually I do. I am very good at saying, okay, that's great. I understand. We're all good. And I move on. This time, and I'm okay that I did this, I stepped into myself and said, and spoke up. In doing that, I gave myself permission to speak up. I gave myself an opportunity to speak up for myself, which empowered me to do other parts of my life where I'm still working on speaking up.
You reclaimed your power, in my opinion.
I did.
You took your power.
I did. I took my power back. So I spoke what I needed to speak. I'm not as concerned about the results. Why? Because I needed to say something. I needed to speak up.
It's not about what happens
me.
after you say it.
No,
you needed to do the speaking up.
You have to speak up. So I also learned, and that's why for me, any experience I have is a gift and opportunity, and I get excited about that because guess what? I'm not worried about the outcome. What I get is this was an opportunity because of this experience, this matching, for me to actually say, okay, I've been really nice, courteous, and kind and understanding about where you're at. Well, I'm going to speak up to it because usually I don't. And this was one opportunity I felt like I need to speak up and say something and get present to me and just say it. So I did. I said what I needed to say. I was kind and caring about it and empathetic and listened to his side and his way of being. And I'm okay with it. But I just needed to speak up. And by doing so, it released this source for me, because today I was in a meeting with my leadership team at work and I spoke up. I asked for something and I spoke up and I got yep, okay, yes, this is what you need to do to deal with that. You can have that. And then you can follow up with this about the secondary question related to that. And then other things showed up as a consequence of just saying, as an unintentional consequence. So when we feel that intuitive, that instinctive sense that we are not being something, we need to go figure out a way to speak into that and be it. Not that we're focusing on what we have not, but I know that there are times that I wasn't being true to me because I wouldn't speak, because it was like, I just didn't really feel like I needed to, except for this particular moment. I was okay with letting go. I was okay of just, relinquishing that. This time I didn't, and I'm so grateful I didn't, because I got to say, okay, here's the deal. And then that comes through in other parts of your life. Everything's
Yes.
about wonderful gifts and opportunities to learn and grow. And I mean, that's why I love doing stuff like this with you, because I love the comments. I love to hear what other people have to say, their vision, their purpose, their understanding, because when I see those things, I can go, oh, how can I put that in my space? So I appreciate what
Ian
everybody
makes a
says.
comment. Me too. It controls us. These are internal stories based on what we have seen. Choice takes only seconds to do or not do. Becoming aware takes the steam out of it. You still have the waves to deal with, internal stories, and this is where, if you have non-judging support, it creates the coping skills.
Yep, that's correct. And some of what we deal with on those internal stories is the story that we created, the judgment that we utilize to make that happen and keep it stick with us. A lot of consequences and things that we have to deal with is internal, self-enlisted, self-done. Because we have to look at our mindset, the stories that we create based on the experiences we have, and we've coded it in our brain. So if something similar comes along, we're going to utilize the things that we've always known, that we've always done. And the minute that you start to shift the status quo in your mindset, it's going to tell you, oh no, don't go back to that. It's going to create cues for you to stop doing what you're doing when you start disrupting the status quo. And you're right, Ian, I love what you said. And that's a lot of what the learning is, the subconscious schemas that we have in our brain that determine how we make choices. And everything is a choice. Do I or don't I? Shall I or shan't I? Okay, somebody scream at me. Do I yell or scream at them back? And now how do you decide whether you're going to yell or scream? Well, it's those stories you tell yourself. Those underlying things that you need to make a clearing for. So for me, opportunities are gifts for me to make a clearing, for me to ante up on me. And the thing I like to say is this, in my deep thoughts, I belong to me. I'm in control of I'm the master of what I do. So if I belong to me, then I get to choose how I act. I get to choose how I connect with people. I get to choose to decide what thoughts and how I'm going to give into another person's life. And I
you get to choose where your power goes.
Yes. Yeah. And I own that, every inch of it. I also own how people entreat me. I own that as well. I can say no. I can say stop. I can say this is something I don't want to do. Because remember, our mindset is not only geared for how we tell stories, it's also how we create coping skills and whether we say yes or no. You know, if we've been in an abusive relationship, sometimes, and for me, my not speaking up comes from an abusive relationship where it was, you don't get to talk, you don't get to do, you don't do this. So I'm going to so for me, my coping skills was just shut up rather than have the noise that comes from an abusive relationship when it's psychological and emotional. Rather than the noise, it's just shut up. Don't ask for what you want. Don't do anything. So me, over the last 2 or 3 years, it's learning to speak up, and you're safe to speak up, and it's okay to say it. There's lots of triggers that we have to deal with that we've got to go shift that story in how we say yes or no. You know, I'm speaking up because I'm choosing to, and I can, and I believe.
And I'm worthy, and I'm worthy. I'm worthy of speaking.
Yes, and I'm worthy of speaking up. I'm not a third-class citizen. And no matter the answer that the person I went on a date with, I'm enough. One of the things that I'm working on with Peyton that's really exciting. Oh, it's right here. I'm so excited. Okay, there's a place called Conscious Ink. These are, I don't know if you can see it, temporary tattoos. And so I'm going to send you one. I'm ordering some, so I'll send you some. So Peyton has a unicorn temporary tattoo on her forearm. And what does that stand for? It stands for she's uniquely herself. A unicorn is unique. She's uniquely herself. So these are mine. This says, be still. This says, I am enough. So I'm starting a campaign of getting communities together where we do this Conscious Inc. and we choose, there are free ones at Conscious Inc. that you can get. And you get these packs, they're like $5 a piece. You can get 10 for $20 or something like that. Where I'm going to put ink on, and that is my mantra for the week that I'm working on.
This is not temporary.
It's permanent.
Everyone that's watching knows it's permanent.
Yep. And
it's permanent. I do love temporary tattoos. That one is permanent.
Yep. So how do you teach a 10-year-old who loves to draw on herself? That was a new coping skill we dealt with. Who loves to draw on herself.
Perfect.
So you find you find a positive manifestation. So these are manifestation tattoos. There's hers. There's a unicorn. So I'm going to start
Michelle, you're so amazing.
An opportunity where people can share their experience about conscious tattoos. Look, I don't know who's built the company, but for me as a parent, it's just like Ian said, a good leader will notice things to motivate people. Well, there are things that Peyton does in a negative way that I could turn into a positive, right? Drawing on herself voraciously in a negative way, you turn that into a positive, give an opportunity where, hello, let's find some temporary tattoos and put it on you to remind you of the great things there are about you. There you go. There's that one.
You, how uniquely you are. That's beautiful.
Yeah.
Michelle, you are such a rock star.
Oh,
you're such a rock star. I mean, you just, every time I'm with you and share space with you, it's beautiful.
Oh, I'm glad it
Ramona, hi. Fantastic. Ramona says hi from Florida. David says, fantastic idea. The other David says, love those temporary tattoos. And Ian, we're going to do this as the final comment. Ian said, Michelle, I'm reclaiming my power too by watching this. Today, I told my fiance in a different country how her karmic is unbalancing me. I told her to own her choices and to step from comfort into a hard zone where communication without judgment can occur.
Into me, see me. Yeah, I get it. Intimacy is into me so that you can be seen. I love that. Intimacy is into me and see.
This is a good idea. Ramona said, can you find a company that makes temporary tattoos from Peyton's art? That's a phenomenal idea.
I don't know, because some of Peyton's art is different, but we can. I mean, I could approach Conscious Inc. I mean, because there are some Peytonisms that she says that are like, what? Wow, where'd you get that from? I mean, this was a conversation when she got off the bus yesterday, real quick. She's like, Mom, I made a new friend. She's a BFFL. Of course, I had to get educated about what that meant. And she says, you may get a random text, but don't take it as a random text because it might be my BFFL. Remember that, Mom. It's not
my best friend for life.
Yeah, it's not. Yeah, that's what it means, best friend for life. And then she says, it's not a random test, so please don't treat it like a random test. I'm like going, wow.
Like a random text.
Get used telling Mom how it goes. And I'm like going, this is amazing. When you teach and empower your kids, woo, it's exciting. So, that's a good idea. Find a temporary tattoo.
I know how you've been, Michelle, you've been sick. You had COVID and you still showed up for us tonight. And I am so appreciative of you being here and with Peyton and everything, just everything that you do and persevere and who you are as a human is just such a beautiful soul. And I love you. And I'm so happy that you came tonight. I'm
so happy to be here.
Thank you for being here.
Oh, you're welcome. I'm honored to be here with you and to share the moment with you and the light and the love. You're a phenomenal person too. Don't forget that.
Thank you, Michelle. I'm going to do our outro. So peace, everyone. Hold on. Check this out. Good night.
Good night.
breath framework. B, begin where you are. R, reclaim your power. E, excavate your core values. A, allow, not control. T, through, not around. And H, healing. The breath framework, a way of life.